Fala pessoal, estamos aqui no nosso último episódio da primeira temporada com um convidado sensacional. Eu quero que vocês aproveitem tanto quanto eu, porque eu já li um pouco do que ele publicou. E nós vamos fazer esse podcast em inglês, apesar do nosso do convidado falar inglês, francês e espanhol como os nossos hosts. Então o Léo também fala francês, espanhol e inglês. A gente poderia fazer em qualquer outro idioma, até chinês, but we decided to do it in English, okay? And I'm very happy to have you here, Rafael. Thank you very much for your collaboration and to have this chat, friend chat about osteopathy. Hello, Leo. How are you? How are Rafa?
Fala galera, mais um episódio aqui, o nosso último dessa temporada, com esse cara sensacional que está trazendo um assunto super interessante para a gente, algo muito diferente e que traz uma polêmica para a nossa profissão e que é importantíssimo a gente ficar ligado. Rafael, como
Bom
allez-vous?
dia, bom dia. Tudo bem, Leo and Leo?
Come on, come on. We are going to start in Portuguese now.
Yes. Probably next time, but we can keep it in
Bom
English
dia is
for the
kind of
moment.
all you know in Portuguese.
Okay. But that's the most important, I think.
Rafa, where are you now?
No, I'm in Paris, in my private practice, where I have been practicing since 1999 as an osteopath. And as you know, I've been traveling and working in different places. And then we met, that was in Kirksville, because I had a 2-year position as a full-time researcher at the AT Steel Research Institute. And then, yes, 5 years ago, I started a revolution or a revolution. It means a revolution with love. We are spreading love in order to give a different perspective on the osteopathic tenets, and especially on the body-mind-spirit osteopathic tenet, which is a legacy from indigenous traditions, but it's a current osteopathic principle that has been reintroduced in 2002 during the last update of the osteopathic tenets in the US profession in America.
Very, very interesting. We're going to talk a lot about that. But our first thing that we are going to topic we are going to talk here is our scientific news. We have a news that explains to us that bees can smell lung cancer. How do you think that could happen?
As you say, yeah, you just sent me the link and I've just read the title. I was thinking, as you know, we will certainly talk about the indigenous traditions and the people that are living very closely to nature and that have been watching, observing nature for thousands of years, and they probably have this kind of knowledge, just by observations between what animals and plants can do. And so we'll talk about, in the last paper, we were talking about, the hierarchy of knowledge productions with kind of Eurocentric views, the Eurocentric dominance of knowledge over the other sources of knowledge. But now I think this kind of indigenous backgrounds, of indigenous perspective on what can we use just by simple observation can provide a different perspective. So we're kind of getting back to the starting point. So that's why we call a revolution, just
for that
cycle.
For that thing, I choose that scientific news. It's because trying to make that connection, because we have also reports that a dog could smell a prostate cancer of its owner at the past. It is reported. So we have an interaction between us and the animal that we we used to live with, but now we don't have much contact. So it came just with the subject that of your research.
Yeah, this is fascinating, and this is fascinating that we can do proper science with strong methodology, just to make sure that what we have seen, observed, is not just due to random effects, but it's clearly what we want to study, that we can reproduce and give some confidence to the results of such studies. So I haven't checked how many patients and I would say the methodology, but I trust you that it was a proper paper that you sent earlier. Yep.
That's really interesting. Do you want to explain us a little bit more about revolution, Osteo Revolution? How do you explain that? How do you start with this thought? How it works?
So as I said, well, during the past 5 years with BMS Formation, we've published, I think that's 9 or 10 papers in peer-reviewed journals. And one of the first was the Native American indigenous legacy on the body, mind, spirit, osteopathic tenet. And they have a strong the medicine wheel, which is a very powerful tool to sustain health, which is body, mind, spirit, emotions. And again, we're going to talk about that. I'm pretty sure you have read this, or many people listening to us have heard about that, and probably it was my case, but then I had a personal experience. So it was not just an information, it was an information that resonated with my own physical experience. And so, because I'm still a scientist. When I was in Kirksville, I was doing research on physiology, changes in skin blood flow.
Sometimes scientists, always scientists.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Thanks.
That's your life
Thanks.
now. That's you can't even come back.
Okay, I appreciate because studying this kind of non-physical component of the body in health and disease, many colleagues think that I've turned crazy, but you are both South American, and South America we have indigenous people. Even if we don't live in the rainforest, we know that they exist. They have their own rituals, and it's I would say it's different here for people living in Europe. Excuse me?
We still have.
Yeah.
I don't know in a few years what's going to happen, but now we still have.
We have it.
Yeah, that's another problem. They are struggling. I don't know in Brazil exactly, but in Peru they're struggling to maintain their own cultural roots. But that's another problem. So back to your questions about the revolution. When I started to study that, and I started to read papers on the neuroscience of perception and multisensory integrations, and there was a research paper on description of indigenous rituals, and me as a patient. In various ceremonies, the guy came and made light touch over me, but I said, okay, I'm a patient, okay, but I've seen that in another context, and when Jason Exton, the director of the Museum of Osteopathic Medicine in Kirksville, gave us some important document that proved that ATCL had a link. He lived among the Shawnees during 1 year. And if you go back to the museum, they have new ales with a lot of materials. I think maybe the link was here. And again, as a scientist, I'm a scientist, and we are in 2024, you know. So what happened or did not happen 150 years ago in the Missouri, that's not my concern. You know, I'm not an historian, and I'm not an anthropologist. I'm just a clinician, and I'm just trying to understand this kind of strange treatments that we can observe from many colleagues in the profession. When I say strange, I said techniques that are not backed by proper science, such as cranial osteopathy, visceral osteopathy. I don't know in Brazil, but even in France, they are getting crazy because we can't provide a proper models of practice. But if we can use that was our work, you know, just using neuroscientific models used to describe what's happening in meditative states. And indigenous people have been used meditative states for healing for years. And I want to make things absolutely clear. You know, I'm still an osteopath. I'm registered with the General Osteopathic Council in the UK. So it means that I need to apply evidence-based treatment. But
where did you study osteopathy?
Great questions. I studied, it was a British campus in Paris. So I graduated from the BCNO. No, it's the BCom in London. And I'm registered with the General Osteopathic Council in the UK.
Okay. And you study also in Andrew Terrorist University?
I was at TSU. I was invited as a full-time researcher. So I was working, not studying. So
you are talking about that kind of historic moment of the creation of the osteopathy, and that for me makes a lot of sense. We need to know what Steele did in the time that he was living. What was the technology in health system? None. But his intelligence, his knowledge, and all that he bring together to make a healing system. That's amazing.
He was a great observer of the nature and the human behavior. And if you think about where he lived, the things he had at his disposal to work, to operate his treatments, it's something really interesting. And maybe there are lots of things to explore there. And maybe in somewhere there are some writings about that. The people who lived close to him, him and his wife, and maybe they have something to say about that. I was pay attention on what you said when you had this experience, and I wondered, that's why you wrote the book Les principes historiques de l'ostéopathie. That's why you wrote the book.
I didn't. Which book are you talking about?
Principes historiques de l'ostéopathie guidée en pratique contemporaine.
Okay, sorry. That's the French translation of a paper that was published in the Healthcare Journal. You know, because in France, many of my colleagues don't read English, so I had just to translate that, and that's an ebook. So that's a paper. That's a paper we've published with Dr. David Dupuy, a French anthropologist who did his PhD thesis on ayahuasca in Peru. And so when we discussed, so again, he's a scientist. He's observing things, and he's just describing, I would say, what he saw and respecting the tradition and just translating them into something that we are European or living in a Western world and in cities we can understand.
He was kind of crazy like us. That's it.
Can imagine.
That's it. Imagine a man who was about 47 years old, trying to heal the people around, not charging for it, doing it for. It's kind of crazy. I'm pretty sure most of the people in Kyrgyzstan thought that's the crazy one. I'm pretty sure that's the crazy one. But now we are 150 years after all that works, and it makes sense. That's the genius part. It makes sense.
And the thing about light touch, is we have science, but the first publication, it's 2017. It means that it's very recent. So we are a generation of practitioners with new evidence available to support, or at least to propose different models of practice with better science, instead of keeping old models and just making sure that we remain in the pseudoscience part. So this is the revolution. We are not creating something new. We are just explaining with modern science what has been done over years and years, and what has been the reputation of the osteopathic profession, and the success about among the public.
One thing I said my last class was when I learned cranial osteopathy, for example, I learned all that moves. This sphenoid bone moves like this, about 1 degree or 1 micra, 30 micra, something like that. And nowadays we see the science explain us the cranial osteopathy works much more about the vascular effect than the biomechanical effect. So the effect that we trying to find in our studies, was based in the biomedical model, and we are not going to find our explanations in the biomedical model. We have a person-centered model, different biopsychosocial. It's more than that. So I have a page that is called Still Sincero, and we have a meme that is biopsychosocial, that is still looking biopsychosocial. Okay, I started in 1874. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
When you read the what Still said, you see that biopsychosocial model about food, what you water, and that's the model we were trying to explain in biomedical model. That's not gonna work.
Yeah, and I don't know if I was the last author of another paper that was published earlier this year about the influence of the Flexner report on the revision of the A.T. Still autobiography. So the reason why osteopaths focused on the biomedical model it's because of the Flexner report, who decided there was a choice to say that the real medicine, true science, will be something that we can measure, the biological component of disease. And so obviously, when we're talking about cranial osteopathy, so if we pretend that bones, we can have an impact on bones, so we have to prove that bones are moving. So because of the whole medicine at that period of time was focused on the disease components, now I would say 100 years later, we focus more on
not the person with the disease model. That's different.
Yeah,
That's totally.
the illness, that's David Dupuy, the anthropologist, who was the first to explain us that in very straightforward ways. So no, the disease, the illness, sorry, is more the experience, patient's experience. And the thing we as clinicians have always seen that patients, they come in with pain, with true pain, but all the biological, the biology, the X-ray examination are properly normal, you know? And so this is where we can provide a different narrative, and we can provide different techniques, different ways of touching, of giving different informations than the medical part, who has formally focused on the biology. So, and an important thing is that the osteopathic principles have evolved over time and have taken into account what we have just discussing. We're just discussing the 1953 principles were focused on the body, you know, focusing on finding and treating somatic dysfunction. But the 2002 principles are focused on the person. We are treating a person. So currently we have few research available, and the research available is more based on the previous principles, trying to find, you know, a linear a cause effect with the somatic dysfunction, implying this type of illness. And now we are trying to find different models to evaluate osteopathic manipulative treatments that will take into account the patient's experience with, from, for example, patients' reported outcome measurements. So there's a lot of new informations, and probably we have missed many information in the previous research because we were just focused on the biology and focused on the somatic dysfunction, which is great, and which was great, I would say, 30 years ago, but no, it's not enough. And now we have physiotherapists, we have chiropractors doing this type of similar work. So if we want to keep alive the osteopathic principles, how can we, what are we doing similarly or differently from other manual therapists? So that's our osteopathic principles, how we can put them into actions during patient care.
I just heard now, keep it pure.
Yeah.
Keep it.
I was thinking about what you said and what I've read, and of course the Flexner report was very important in the beginning of the 20th century to organize, let's say this way, the teaching of medical sciences, because at that time there were so many lines of teaching medicine and health science in general, that they had to organize it to direct to what we see now as science, because they used the German model of teaching and to work on basic science and direct the people to concentrate on basic science to understand the principles of life and the way that the body works, the cells works and organize themselves. And it was great. It was great. And we have to see the fact that Steele was still there, and he thought differently, but he was just one person in a changing world where people started to have the need to organize the society and the teaching and the economy in a way that we could thrive better in the world. So he was just one man that revolutionized the science, the medical science, but he was alone, let's say that. And we see the time passes, and in the late 70s, we have the beginning of this biopsychosocial model. It was said, it was I believe, I forgot the name of the doctor, but it was maybe in 79, and he was proposing we start seeing people in a biopsychosocial way, and work with that. And as you said, we were concerned about the explaining how the diseases happen, how the body is dysfunctional, and how through anatomy and physiology we can work on bodies. And then in 2002, we go to the World Health Organization, and there's a paper saying different, that we have to go back and and go back to be body, mind, and spirit to work properly in our profession. And my question is, what do you think changed from the beginning of the 20th century, and what happened in the late 70s that changed the minds of the osteopaths, so we could go back to body, mind, spirit in 2002? And why do you think it took so long for us to go back to body, mind, and spirit?
That's a great question, and I'm afraid I won't be able to reply, because I still don't understand why they have put the body, mind, spirit osteopathic tenet back without any definition, without any clear explanation of what professional skills we can relate to this tenet or not. So I don't know if it's just for political information, or educational information, or clinical information. So this is why we've published a paper on a roadmap to evaluate the relevance of this body, mind, spirit tenet in clinical care, in contemporary clinical care. Because, as Leo said, scientist one day, scientist forever. It's just what I personally believe is one thing, but the thing is that when we publish a paper, anyone can read it. And so, and if we have enough evidence to say that, using the body, mind, spirit osteopathic tenet does not provide any better patient outcomes, or it's confusing the mind because, it's strange and there's no definition, we will have to remove it. And I will probably do other things, not becoming an osteopath, but that's just my personal thing. But I don't understand why they've put these tenets and without any definition, and as you know, with information, and we've for the moment we've been the only group to publish that in peer-reviewed papers. And because I'm Peruvian, it's kind of accepted or tolerated because it's part of, like you in Brazil, we have an indigenous it's our culture. But again, if it's only a cultural tool that can help a specific population, we need to describe that. I don't like to to refer myself as an osteopath. Say I have someone, a medical doctor or physiotherapist, saying, okay, I've just check on PubMed, what's the body, mind, spirit? You're using the body, mind, spirit, but what is it? And no one cares. So that's surprising. And again, this is it has been reintroduced in the United States of America. And my understanding, my feeling is not, it's the wound is not healed between the relationships between Native American people and the European settlers. And So this is what we've described in our last paper that was released in June. You know, that's still the legacy of colonization that has spread in the healthcare field. And we have cited a couple of authors that consider the Flexner report as a legacy of you know, this kind of colonization in healthcare, meaning that 5 countries that are providing the true, genuine scientific knowledge for the rest of the world, and this kind of hierarchy has been maintained over time. And again, it's not a yes or no or black or white. I prefer a grid of, depending on the context, depending on the patients, depending on what's available, one epistemology might be more useful compared to another one. You know, if I broke my arms, I won't take the plane to go to Brazil in Acre and seek for a shaman. That would be stupid. Okay, so but you know, if I am a pain, if I'm in pain, I've seen other guys and I'm not getting better. That's a good opportunity to try something different and not just, you know, walking around and wait that something will happen. So this is what we've introduced. We've introduced the concept of epistemological flexibility. And the thing is that we have been doing that since inceptions in osteopathic care, you know, just being flexible enough to adapt to each patient as individuals. And one thing that Leo from Brasilia just outlined about, it is Engel, a psychiatrist who introduced the biopsychosocial model. But the guy who introduced the biopsychosocial model into the musculoskeletal care field is Gordon Waddell. He was a Scottish surgeon, and he was teaching at the British School of Osteopathy. So, and in an interview, he has been asked one question about that, and he didn't want to reply. So maybe he had some coffee with colleagues and he heard about osteopaths saying, oh, you know, I have patient with low back pain. I've checked this one and I've asked if he was doing well in his life and everything. And the other guys with the same symptoms, totally different treatment. And so Gordon Waddell did what we are all doing. He's looking in the scientific literature what's available to describe, not just focusing on the biology, but the psychosocial environment. And he probably found this guy, Engel. So the thing is that person-centered care, biopsychosocial approach, intercultural healthcare is probably something that we have done since the inception as osteopaths, but we did not publish first in the scientific literature. So it does not belong. So for the moment, in some part of the world, we only have pseudoscience, and everything that was great, that was very helpful, has been kept from other professions, which is great. You know, I prefer to have physiotherapists using, you know, person-centered care and biopsychosocial approach, but we could have been much more supportive on what the legacy we had as professionals. And this is why we are very strong in publishing on this body, mind, spirit tenet, because even if the osteopaths don't do that for the moment, they do not pay attention, it's published. And so I don't know if the profession will take care of that in next month or in 10 years or in 20 years, but at least this is not another professions that will say, oh, that's interesting, this body, mind, spirit. Let's dive deep this, and because it might be helpful for specific populations.
Great. Very, very interesting. I want you to talk to us about the experience in Peru. How was that? That time that you been in Peru and saw all that Indian medicine working, and the parallel that you make in the paper with the osteopathy, the light touch, the visceral techniques. It was amazing. How do you work on that? How did it came in your head and make the fusion?
It didn't came to my head. It was a physical experience, and that's the big difference. That's a big difference. You know, as a scientist, you know, I want to, my mind is trained to try to control everything, capture everything, understand everything, and then during ceremonies, um, everything, you have a totally different references. So I probably want to refer to David Dupuy, the anthropologist papers that were published in Frontiers in Neuroscience, where he explains what I've experienced in I would say in something that can be not that scary for people. I mean, um, yeah, it's you. Basically, what indigenous people have done over time is just to put a high stress, high physiological stress. You know, you are kept away from your usual environment. Okay, usually ceremonies are taking place at night. You are not eating a lot, you know, if not diet. So no sugar, no animals, no sex, no nothing during 10 days before. So, you know, you're physically very tired. And then you have a certain kind of plants, sacred, they call sacred plants. Some are hallucinogenic, others not. But they bring you into a different physiological, you know, perceptions. And what David has very clearly defined is that basically you are in a state of hyper suggestibility. You know, usually you don't go into these places just for fun, you know, just to get an experience. Just it's not a bachelor party with your good friends. So basically, it's when it's very complicated in your life, you know. Just I went through an amicable divorce. Then my kids moved away from 600 kilometers, and my mother died in just 1 month. Okay, so basically, you you that's the kind of events that can happen to a lot of people. But as a Peruvian, I knew that I will find a better support with these indigenous compared to just taking pills and discussing to psychiatrists and everything. So basically, what they do is they, when you are in this kind of hypersuggestibility states, the healer, the shaman, they came and they kind of reframe or give a different perspective, give another narrative to what you are enduring, and you're feeling better. Okay, and something very important that David said is that, you know, in Peru, the people believe that the shamans are heal them, or it's thanks to the plants, sacred plants. But if you go to India, and people, they are 100% sure that it's the Vipassana retreat or the yoga posture that have healed them. And if you go in the Catholic Church for a silent retreat for 2 weeks, they will believe that's the prayers that have healed them. So what they are trying to describe is there's a all these kind of procedure, they have similar way of extracting you from your usual environment, just time to reflect on what's you're going through, and a healer or someone who is reframing what your story, your personal story. And sometimes they use the hands, and the hands is just the laying on hands, very light touch. That was my case. So again, if you go back to what we've discussed earlier on the Flexner report and the body-centered versus the person-centered, before that we're just focused on what is going on when someone is putting a light touch over the skull or over the viscera. But the thing is that is the context, the non-specific effects, and I'm pretty sure that it's the same for every type of healing, including indigenous healings, where the contextual effects are, I would say, much more important compared to what we can do in osteopathy. You're listening to you guys, they have their colors, they have their feather, they have their sacred tools, and it's at night, you have 10-20 persons, kind of scary what's going to happen. So and then someone is coming is really taking care of you. So again, there's nothing new. But if we think that 80 still might have this kind of experience, so he probably has seen that the body is more than just bones and joints and muscles. The body can have kind of emotions, can have a link to the nature, to nature, to the environment. This is what we've published in our last papers, the indigenous body representation, and not just the Western body representation. And in the Western world, basically, we take care of our body only when it's non-silent. Oh, I have a pain, I can't move, so I can't consume or produce anymore, so I need to see someone. And but the indigenous body representation, since we are all connected, and it's a vehicle to live experience, and everything happens for a reason. And if the more you suffer, the more you learn. So that's kind of belief they put into your head, and you're feeling better after that. So again, whether it's true or not, as a scientist, I just see the results. And there's a lot of if you go to PubMed, because I think there's a lot of publications on medical anthropologists, especially in Brazil, studying the effects of indigenous rituals. I'm familiar with the North America and South America, but many more. But so people who are genuinely interested, they can find reliable information on that topic.
I was thinking about we are going to have the second season of our podcast, and we are going to have Jason Hexton here.
Good, perfect.
And also, I think we are going to have a third episode with Zegarra-Parodi and Jason Hexton talking about the history of osteopathy. That will be great. I'll just be here, okay?
Great pleasure.
I'm not asking anything. Just let you talk. Let you guys talk. That's enough for me. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's all makes sense about what we have in modern healing system. That's not modern. That's old-fashioned way of taking care of the people that we lost in sometimes in the past. We lost that ability, and now we need to go backwards to find that again.
So you understand now the revolution.
Yeah. Now
back to the starting point.
I'm going to wear it more times.
Okay, thank you.
One could say that we lived a dehumanizing process during the 20th century, and what concerns the medical education. And now, after this 2010 forward, we are trying to rehumanize the medical sciences, because now we're paying attention again to the human nature, the relations, the contextual effects, the factors that make people happy, sad, angry, and how it affects health. And we saw an effort from several doctors to apply biopsychosocial model, but without success, because we were still focused on scale, engaging numbers and producing more for the health. And I mean, we were trying to improve the numbers of people treated, and we were forgetting about the human side of the healing process, the treatment process. And maybe for us, that we are South Americans, we have this religion, this variety of religion here. It's something very, very natural. We grow up with this, and we are used to see several manifestations of religion, of beliefs, and that's not new for us. But we were taught to dehumanize the things, to look with a cynic eye to health and disease, and to clear this area from the human part, to be able to treat, to think in a Cartesian way, and try to find a solution. So we can say that we are trying to rehumanize the medicine, the treatments. And as you said, as osteopaths, we have this thing that's innate of the profession, to be connected to the human side, because it still was a great human being. And you're saying that your revolution, the thing you're trying to show us, is that we need to go back to be humans treating humans, to be compassionate with each other. Is that it?
Yeah, that's a great comment. And maybe I should, if you don't mind, I would like to add something, because we needed the the biological focus on the disease, because in back to the Flexner time, if you had an infection, it was great to know exactly what type of antibiotics you needed, and a lot of disease have been eradicated thanks to this approach. But the patients have changed, have evolved. The quality of life has increased. The life expectancy has increased as well. So we have much more patients with chronic disease and chronic pain. So patients are not the same compared to still had or early osteopaths as. So I would say it's thanks to the good job of the medical model, the biomedical model. Now we have more patients with kind of chronic disease, but the biological model is not enough. Focusing on the biology is not enough for the moment. And patients need what we can offer. We can offer time, we can offer compassion, we can offer kind of touch. So we have a wider opportunities to reframe what the way they perceive their body, the way they understand their symptoms, and the meaning they give to what they are currently experiencing.
Let me show your paper.
Okay.
And we are going to talk about it.
Okay.
This one that it's kind of I read one time. I think I'm going to bring it to class and have a discussion about this model with the students of osteopathy. I think that there are a lot of information here, and this part for me was the greatest part of all. Let me show you. You already talk about something here, but that, let me see here.
So while you're looking, I'd really like to thank the co-authors, because of course I'm the first author.
Part was
Each
amazing.
of them I've provided so many important background, and we've been lucky to have, you know, Lewis Melmadrona, who's a MD psychologist, and he's an indigenous from North America, and Jerry Swidrovich is a pharmacologist, again in indigenous in Canada. So that's and the other guys, and Emiliano Castel is from Argentina, and he has been working on decolonization in healthcare, and the other team is the Italian teams. Don't ask me why I ended up with 4 Italian co-authors, but Giandomenico, he published interesting papers early on interoception and sensitization. Luigi is the dean of a school who is very supporting of us in Italy, and Christian Lunghi and Francesca Baroni, they are the authors who first developed the kinefin model into healthcare. They were the first to introduce that. So over time, we've refined their initial model with other things. So thank you for allowing me to thank them again, because that was a teamwork, obviously.
What a teamwork! What a teamwork! That's a great teamwork. Congratulations!
Yeah, and Travis, sorry, I forgot about Travis. Wow, he's American, but he's running from the Michigan State University, but he's running a kind of center in Merida in Mexico. So so American, they go and they have their rotation treating indigenous people in Mexico. So like many of co-authors, they are familiar with both worlds.
Congratulations for you all. It's a great it's a great explanation and makes all sense. That's really great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I just highlight something here, but that's the part I think. Do you want to talk about this is amazing. I think everybody that is listening to us, is watching us, and now, please, you need to find this paper, read it carefully, softly, understand
more than once. It's a paper to be read more than once, because it's a very complex matter. There are several topics that we need to stop and reflect on it, because it's really mind-changing paper. It's great. It's a great paper.
Thank you.
And this part, let me show my that's here. This one. That's really fantastic. I saw this table and I thought, that's it. The visceral techniques works, period. How? For the light touch, for the soft tissue treatment, for the lift that you promote to the viscera. That's really amazing. That's the same thing that I just said about the cranium. We think that we can move the temporal bone 30 degrees. No, no, no. The light touch in this region could do a lot of things lot of more things that you think. That's really fantastic. How do you how does this table came?
You know, I'm like a magician. I don't want to share my tricks in
Okay,
public.
okay.
The truth is, Christian did this, drafted this table, but you know, it's only people familiar with buzzword that can provide this type
Yeah.
of table, and maybe something that is that it's not just light touch. It's light touch with mental visualization of the anatomy. Okay, so basically this is what we are doing when we are palpating this type of patients. Obviously, the healers, when they touch the body, they don't have like us just bones, muscle. They more feeling like energies, or I don't know. And again, we're talking here about similarities on the technical parts, but the way they perceive their body is is different.
No, that's really interesting. Do you have any part that you want to talk about specifically? Which part do you prefer?
You know, I'm a clinician, so I would say that's the final part about the Kinefin framework. And because, you know, talking about history is good, about anthropology is good, but at the end of the day is, well, a patient is coming. Patients, they don't care about what happened in Missouri, what happened in with Sutherland or anything. They want to get better. And the thing is that what we've introduced is this flexibility, and it's not just the technique. It's just, if we talk about person-centered care, depending on the patient's expectations and the indigenous, the sociocultural influences on the way they perceive, they understand their body, some kind of techniques will make sense and others not. So I don't think you have the figures here.
Which
The other one has the figures.
Or the graphical abstract, probably.
Yeah, it's
is
on the
it?
other one.
On the graphical abstract is,
Other
you know, it's the Western eye and the indigenous eye, and
where is it? I don't know.
you don't have it.
It's the other one, Leo.
Let me see. The other archive?
Yeah. I'll send you.
Let me see. This one, probably. I don't know. Where is it?
This table you're showing, it's on this paper you just posted, and the figures he's talking about, it's on the other paper. I just sent to our group in WhatsApp.
Let me see. Ah, that's another one. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me.
He's talking about the Knafin figures, right, Rafael?
Yeah.
The Knafin figures. They're great. They're great.
Let me just open it here.
The Kinefin framework, the first osteopaths who introduced this into the
page 13, Leo.
13.
Yep.
Okay.
13.
It was
This
Professor Stefan. Okay. Probably.
13. Página 13, aí. This one or the other one?
This one?
The graphical abstract might be easier, but
some pages down. There's another one. There,
Okay.
18. This one?
This?
But anyway, we can talk about this. It's okay. The thing is that I wanted to pay a tribute to Professor Stephen Tyman, who passed away a couple of years ago, and he was he had a PhD in philosophy, and he was a professor at the British School of Osteopathy. And the truth is, it was very difficult for me to understand his lectures, you know. And I think probably my best attention, it lasted about 2 minutes or 3 minutes, because he was talking about things that were not available for me at this period of time. But now he introduced the Kinefin framework. So it's a tool to guide to guide clinical decision making, you know, to help clinicians in deciding what would be the most appropriate for each patient individually. So it's not like say, oh, this patient has this, and so I need to do this technique. So basically, we have four parts of these Kinefin frameworks, and some will make more sense for patients compared to others. So we have and we are using two important medical concepts that are evidence-based medicine and person-centered care. And when we talk about person-centered care, we're talking about what are the sociocultural assumptions of patients regarding their body. So basically on the right part, in simple and complicated model, I would say it's more a Western vision focused on the musculoskeletal functions. And the truth is, when patients came with such formal request, the work I do is quite similar to what a physiotherapist can do or a chiropractor can do. So because, you know, I'm using the clinical guidelines, I'm using the best available evidence. And if patients want to have less pain and they have less pain, that's all for them. I'm okay. But on the left part of the Kinefin frameworks, when we talk about complex and chaotic frameworks, it's more indigenous perceptions of the body. You know, they are more focused on prevention, and it's not just manual treatments. You know, they're usually this type they pay much more at this type of patients. They pay much more attention to what they are eating, the way the quality of the relationship, personal and professional relationship, and they exercise more. So basically the link between cause and effect is not that evidence when we want to perform a technique. And using this Kinefin framework, especially with interoceptive light touch, might be easier to describe what we've been taught all. I think when someone just putting the hand over the skull and asking the patient, oh, you had an ankle sprain 2 years ago, and the patient say, oh, why did you do that? So without this type of, it's easy to trick patients, and it's unethical, and we add a lot of that. So and again, sometimes being accused of pseudoscience is justified. You know, this is why we are providing this type of framework, just to explain that in this type of clinical environment with this type of patients, we can provide interoceptive manual approaches such as cranial or visceral techniques. And of course, if patients come with shoulder pain, and if he asks for pain relief and you don't do any basic a clinical examination or mobility, range of motion, and specific tests that will, and you just go straight to the cranial and explain to him that because he had a whiplash, it's not appropriate, because it's not person-centered, it's practitioner-centered. Okay, and the similar, if a patient's you know, if you have a kind of a yoga teacher like Ricardo, the guy we described in the paper, and you know, he had some stress and he wants to feel better, and you go right away just manipulating the whole spine, you won't address his request. So it's not just the technique, is in which context, in which specific context for each patient do we apply this type of technique, and how we combine this passive manual technique with a more active approach, because we know that especially in chronic pain patients, active component is known to be well, very good to help patients recover from chronic pain. So we've been focusing on the active component, the passive manual component, which type of narrative and what type of sociocultural assumptions towards health they have. So instead of having one type of techniques or one type of osteopathic approach, we have described 4 different clinical scenarios that basically can depict the whole the diversity of osteopathic manual approaches. And what I really liked, and this is why I contacted Christian and Francesca, is that instead of having practitioners saying that the true osteopathy is that, and so assuming the other part is wrong, Leo said keep it pure, but any osteopath can say I am the king of purity or anything. So here with this Kinefin framework, you don't have a superiority of one approach compared to another. You have to the possibility to find the best approach for your specific patients. So this is why I really like this kind of approach, because we are not dividing osteopathy. On the contrary, we are kind of reuniting the diversity of osteopathic approaches into a single framework.
Rafael, how many times do you work as an osteopath?
I'm supposed to be full-time practitioners, but you know, I don't sleep a lot. But you know,
10 years more.
Ah,
When you ended,
how long
have you been an osteopath?
Sorry, I thought you were asking in my today.
Oh,
Oh, okay. No, I graduated at 1st of July 1907, so it's going to be 27 years.
okay.
Yeah, 27 years. Oh my goodness.
In all that years, when did you change it? That vision, that kind of that way of see the patient? How do you make that change? Because when you end the graduation, you have another concept. And how was that the change? How do you make the change? Working with this concept now, how as you do nowadays?
You know, after graduation, I went to Peru and I worked with chiropractors, and I was working with chiropractors, and I can't remember their name. They're just manipulating one the C1, the atlas, 100 to 120 patients a day, okay, just 2 minutes each. So I was doing that and I was happy with that, and patients were happy. So the thing is that then after that, I became kind of bored, you study 5 years just to do that. And then because I was curious, I had different kind of experiences. And now, that's to reply to your questions, is evidence-based medicine. Instead of you have better results if you don't focus on the technical part, if you focus on the psychosocial part. So it's not just applying evidence-based medicine, it's just common sense to use the experience of others to make sure that our patients are getting better and in a quicker way. So and the what I've seen in Kirksville, that was probably a huge shift, because as I said, in my mind, in the way I perceive, because again, like I said earlier, when you read papers and you don't relate that to the personal experience, well, yeah, it's just an information among others. But when I was in Kirksville, I spent 2 years working on skin blood flow changes, and just to check if the early studies of Irving Core with modern tools, modern science methods and statistics was the same. And we discovered that if we apply the real technique, or if we do the light touch, the body will react, the physiological response will be exactly the same. And then we had the LC Osteo study that was published in the JAMA, that was 3 years ago, and I was the coordinator of the osteopathic team. That was 400 patients with chronic low back pain. That was 400,000 euros. So that was a huge study, and it was the same. What we osteopaths call the real technique, and what we osteopaths call the placebo technique, the light touch, patients, they can't make the difference. So we found a statistical difference, but it was not clinically relevant. So I said, well, as soon as I touch my patients, those that will improve will improve. Those that will not improve will not improve. But the most important is the way they interpret my touch, the way they will interpret the narrative. And this is when I really started to focus more on the biopsychosocial aspects. And then the guy from the forest came, and yeah, you know the story.
Oh, I like to ask that because I used to say that science just make our life simple. That's how it works. So the vision of a scientist, knowing all the stuff that applying this in your patients, putting it together with the native medicine. How does it came all together when you see a person just in front of you saying, "Hello, Rafael, I have a neck pain." That's just blow your mind. How do I work with that?
Yeah, but one thing that's a great question. And I'm scientist, but the question I've added is, what do you expect from this session today? And this is just, and then based on the answer, yeah, I know that I have to focus more on the musculoskeletal part, because this makes sense for this patient. And if he feels pain on a joint, and if I don't touch this joint, he will think that I'm not doing that I've not been listening to these people. And if I get a different approach, I just want to have another opinion, and just to feel more relaxed, feel more comfortable. So and I know that if I apply the same techniques that he recently had with a physiotherapist and with not a good outcome, so I will do things differently. So again, just kind of lazy people, or I'm just asking, what do you want? And at the end of the session, are you okay? uh, do,
That's
do,
it.
do you want something more? Just, again, it's patient focused and person centered.
Yeah.
Are you happy with what it's kind of establishing a contract? That's the definition of a therapeutic alliance. What do you expect from me today? And what would be a good session for you? How would you describe a good session for you? And that's kind of easier for me than to start totally different questions or narratives. And
That really, I really think is fantastic. Do you have any other part that you want to explain to us? I always said that this podcast is for me and for Leo more than anyone else.
We are
So
privileged.
we have the privilege that have you here and ask everything that you want. We want to know and to that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I'd like to ask you something, Rafael.
yeah, for sure.
Try to explain us what is the decolonization.
Okay, so this is why I decided, and you kindly accepted to have this talk in English, because we need to be very careful on the word we're gonna choose. I am French and I am Peruvian, so I have both sides in me. Okay, so probably part of me has been part of the colonization process, and another part of me have been in the indigenous process. And this is why in this paper I wanted to have both sides, because the way we want to handle this important problem is not just it's not to blame anyone or any group for what their parents or grandparents or grandparents did or did not have done. We just want to raise awareness on unconscious violence, unconscious bias, or unconscious ways of putting a hierarchy of knowledge production. Decolonization in healthcare is just understanding that there are different ways of producing knowledge. There are different ways to see the body. There are different ways to understand the illness. And those different ways are shaped by sociocultural influences. And this is why I like the anthropologist approach, because they do not put the hierarchy on the different cultures. When a Western guy come in the rainforest, is just living among them during months, eating what they eat, sleeping where they sleep. It's not so then he can describe without a kind of superiority what he has experienced. Okay, so probably this is something that you are totally agree with that, but sadly this is not always the case. When we see, for example, that the body, mind, spirit tenet is pseudoscience. Okay, is pseudoscience based on what? Based on the way a group of on a Eurocentric perspective. Okay, so again, so I'm just here to put more balance, more critical thinking. Okay, obviously the body, mind, spirit tenet will not be helpful for each patient in each clinical scenarios. As we can see on the screen, it might be useful for some patients to provide them a different narrative on the meaning and purpose. And this is a paper we've published on the biopsychosocial spiritual model, just adding a few questions on what's the meaning and the purpose of their actions, on the way they understand what they are experiencing. So that's the way we are addressing this process again. And the way, if we go back to the title of this paper, we are reintegrating something. So we are not saying that something is better than another. We are just reintegrating something that has been missed over time. And we are reintegrating this missing part with modern current science. Okay, so I'm not, it might be strange to understand because I said that we are leading a revolution, but I'm very careful on what we're doing. What we are putting here is because we have science that can support this approach. Okay, so we are not blaming anyone. We are just reintegrating something that might be useful for some patients in some clinical scenarios. Is that what? Does that answer your question, Leo from Brasilia?
Yeah. I understood. I asked because the word goes on and on the article, and for those who will have the pleasure of reading, it's important to highlight what is decolonization. It's not that thing about the oppressor and the oppressed. It's just looking at things in another way. It's applying the epistemological flexibility when seeing people. It's to retrieve what was we were taught that is considered the person in front of you as a body, mind, and spirit unit. And you have to understand, as said David Putter, our first guest here, he said that the people who sat in front of you, he's not coping, he's in distress, he's suffering, and he needs more than you explain him that the bone, the joint is dysfunctional, the muscles hypertonic. He needs attention. He needs to be taken care. He needs to be approached as a human in distress. And we have to be empathetic, and we have to be compassionate about him and about what he's going through. And that is for us a biopsychosocial approach. I don't know if you agree with me, but I thought it was necessary for us to you explain us, because you are one of the authors, and it was necessary so you could say what you meant about decolonization and about revolution. In fact, you are trying to recover, to retrieve our nature as health professionals.
That's a great comment again, and because this paper is in open access in healthcare, you can also download the revision process. And one reviewer asked us to replace decolonization with multicultural. He said decolonization It's kind of tricky, and I know exactly, you know, but my co-authors, Jerry Swidrovich, I met him at a webinar, and it was decolonization in healthcare. So I can ask him. So we've explained, you know, multicultural, everybody agrees on multicultural. We know that we have different culture, different people. Decolonization is that a group of people is putting a hierarchy between the different culture. So it's just, we want to, again, like we've just discussed, we need to be careful when we are judging or saying that something is pseudoscience. Is it where does this judgment comes from? And make sure that we are not hurting the feelings of other people, because when you say that holism, for example, is pseudoscience, it's just the way that hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people are living. So and it started with the European colonization in America. So thank you for asking this question, because it's very important again that yeah, we just want to raise awareness on existing problem, and at least to make sure that people does not repeat this cycle of exclusion with conscience.
And we thank you very much, but we have almost 2 hours of talking here, and we are going to invite you again.
Okay, thank you. No problem.
I'm pretty sure we have much more to talk, and we are going to do another episode with you and David Poulter, with you and Jason Hexon. We need more of your generosity, of your knowledge. That's really amazing talking to you. Really, really, thank you very much. It's fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
And we are going to talk about all the work that you still are doing another research now.
I hope my wife is not listening, but over the summer we should. Well, I've been invited to as a co-author on how to teach cranial osteopathy in an evidence-based environment.
I read your paper of cranial osteopathy that
So, and now it's the next step. And how can we teach that? Because we have hundreds of schools around the world, around of teachers, but not a lot of them are publishing what they are.
at Anduteris University, where
that's the secret for the moment. I've been contacted by a colleague in Europe.
Okay.
But you know, in the US there are physicians, though. So basically, they can use different models. That's not a problem.
I heard somewhere that 95% of the osteopaths in US don't work with manual therapy.
Yeah.
So they really don't need that kind of paper at the end, because they work as a physician. So
Yeah.
So that's another.
This. Yeah.
That's another and totally different cultural environment. And United States of America, this is the only country in the world with two different medical professions. And it's true that most of the students that are enrolling, they want to become a physician.
yeah.
So, and becoming a DO, because they will have exactly the same training, same medical training, and apply to the same boards. And it's another way of becoming a physician. And you know, and in Kirksville, I have, I think that's 200 hours of osteopathic training. And that's the maximum. So
We've
that's
been there. We've been there, the three of us, and we had contact with osteopaths in the US, and it's very clear it's completely different. The way they think, the profession, the way they work, because they trained as physicians first, and we see that most of them go to the family physician field or the rehabilitation, neurology, pediatrics, and just a small part goes to an osteopathy residence program. And if I'm not mistaken, there's only one residency program that pays you to study. The other ones they are paid, and that hinders the formation there. And also they're not taught cranial osteopathy during the graduation. They have to do the course at the Cranial Academy, the Southern College, I don't know, and the OPC to have the credit to graduate in osteopathy medicine.
But
We used to make the invitation live because it's hard to you to say no for the next season, okay?
I know it's okay. It's okay. We can plan that in advance. But just to about what's happening in the US and what's happening in Europe, I have more an indigenous way of seeing things like natures. You have different season, you know, and now probably it's the winter because, you know, there's less and less osteopathy. But after the winter comes the spring, and if something new has to arrive, the old has to die. So it's just a process. So osteopathy will survive probably in different ways with different peoples, but I'm confident with that. So I don't see that as a threat or challenges. It's just part of the usual process.
For sure. Rafael, I just want to thank you, and you could say your last words in this episode.
Okay,
what's your
so
take-home message for us?
okay, so we won't have the time to talk about nostalgia because I don't have nostalgia for the exact explanation I just gave you. You know, I never have nostalgia because I'm just happy that something very important happened in my life, and that was part of my process. And again, when something, you know, stopped, it's the end of something new and something different. And so that's again that could be the final words, because, you know, osteopathy faces important challenges. And what we've discussed in this paper is that many colleagues in the academic world, they want to focus on the musculoskeletal care and just putting away the osteopathic principles, the putting away osteopathic techniques such as cranial osteopathy and visceral techniques. I would say putting into the curriculum, just, you know, just to please the academic world. And this is a real challenge because the next generation of osteopaths will never know about that. So again, we have to, I'm very confident. Of course, it's not comfortable, but this is part of process. We have to go through this winter of osteopathy, and the revolution we've started 5 years ago. More and more people are joining us, and it makes more and more sense, because now people, they can see that if we don't publish on that, if we don't provide enough evidence to support what we're doing, but some kind of things will disappear. So again, like I said, I don't know if it's next month, next year, in 10 years, or if I won't be able to see that during my life. But I know that something much more powerful will emerge from that, and with this epistemological flexibility, and something that started 150 years ago in misery from one single man to know a global profession. So thank you again, boss Leos, for the
Now you have
invitation.
two
Was
more. Now you have two more in Osteo Revolution, okay?
okay.
More soldiers.
Oh, from Brazil. Thanks so much. Obrigado.
Rafael,
We have something here that we say when we are together is
Okay.
tamo junto.
Tamo junto.
Tamo junto. We are together.
Tamo junto. Okay. Obrigado.
thank you, Rafael, for
Thank you
being
very much.
here, for sharing your knowledge, this great mind of yours, the way you think things, the way you see osteopathy, and this perspective you just brought to us. It's very, it's encouraging. It's great to see that there's somebody out there trying to be more human in the profession in a scientific way, right? And I'm sure that there will be many more podcasts with you. Maybe we'll have to schedule a whole day to discuss because man, you have a brain that's amazing. You can talk a whole day without stopping. That's amazing, and we're just delighted with all the knowledge, all the things you said to us. Next time you come here with another guest, we'll just sit down and relax and watch you two discuss and keep learning and learning and learning because it was great. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup
Merci.
pour être ici, nous donner cette fête
Oh,
de connaissances et de changement
yes. Oui.
de notre profession. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Rafael. It was amazing. I have no words to thank you for all the knowledge that you share. Merci beaucoup, merci bien. C'était fantastique. La prochaine fois, nous faisons à Paris.
Con mucho gusto. Están invitados aquí en París.
Y hablamos el idioma de fiesta que es el español.
Mejor, mucho mejor para disfrutar de la vida.
Para la fiesta hablamos español. Perfecto.
Sí.
Haremos una charla.
Bueno.
Muito obrigado, galera. Seguinte, esse foi o nosso último episódio da primeira temporada. Não poderia terminar melhor do que com essa conversa gostosa, sensacional, com muito conhecimento do nosso Rafael Zegarra-Parodi. E eu falo para vocês, which is your Instagram page? You want to share with us?
Yes, BMS dot formation.
BMS underline formation?
Yeah, BMS like body, mind, spirit. Formation is like training.
BMS underline formation.
Formation.
Formation, né? Com T. Aí, sigam a página, podem fazer perguntas para ele, aproveitem. E todos os estudos que a gente mostrou aqui, eu também aconselho vocês a buscarem os estudos, lerem os estudos devagar e com muita. E aproveitem todo esse conhecimento que está compartilhado aí. E agora ele tem mais 2 soldados do Osteo Revolution aqui no Brasil. Thank you very much again. Merci beaucoup. Gracias y
Muchas gracias.
hasta en chino. Gracias. Vamos a hacer foto.
Ok.
Obrigado, galera, pela participação e nos vemos na segunda temporada. Grande abraço.